Well, welcome back to a Proverbs wisdom moment. And today we're looking at Proverbs chapter 26. And I'll read for you the verses we're going to look at. We're going to look at verses 18 through 22. Proverbs 26, verse 18 says, "Like a madman shooting firebrands or deadly arrows is a man who deceives his neighbor and says, 'I was only joking.' Without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossip, a quarrel dies down. As charcoal to embers and as wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome man for kindling strife. The words of a gossip are like choice morsels. They go down to a man's innermost parts." And this section of Proverbs all has kind of this theme of our choice of words and gossip and strife. And there are other parts of Proverbs that have dealt with this topic as well. Chapter 16 has a little section of verses that are very similar. But one of the mental pictures that's unique in this part that we start to see is this picture in verse 18 where it's the madman shooting firebrands or deadly arrows. And I want you to picture that with me. Maybe when you hear that word firebrands, it's hard to picture what's happening. Maybe picture a campfire. You're out in the woods. It's middle of summer, August, and kids start coming up, and of course this is pretty fun. They pull the sticks out of the fire and they're on fire and they start waving them around, right? And the fire goes as it's going back and forth. And then they say, "Oh, this is even more fun. You know what we need to do? It's like fireworks. Maybe if we start throwing those sticks in the air and we can watch them fly through the air. Oh, this is so much fun." And the sparks go out and the whole time, maybe from a distance, we're looking and saying, "Ah!" And we're watching all the embers and the fire kind of like float up into the trees that are all dry. We know what that picture is painting for us. Or the other part of that description, the man shooting deadly arrows in the sky. And we can picture someone with their hunting bow with big broadhead tips, scary, deadly arrows, and they're taking them and they're just boing, shooting them straight up in the sky. Look how high they go. This is so much fun. Boing, boing, right? This is madness. It uses that word, this madman. We can picture what's happening here with this scene. And as this passage goes on, in verse 20, it talks about how the wood to the fire is the gossip, the words we choose to use. And part of that picture that is painting through here is the choice of words that we're making. Are we gossiping? Are we adding fuel to the fire of strife? And verse 22 has a very unique description of how gossip and the words we use affect us. It said the words of the gossip are like choice morsels. They're sweet, they're tasty. But then what ends up happening? They go down to the man's innermost parts. Those choice of words, they go down and they settle. They stick with us. They impact us. They change us. And one of the things that is particularly powerful in this passage is in verse 19. We see that one who was shooting up those arrows was playing with the fire. They weren't being careful with the words that they were choosing to use. And then they say, "Oh, whoops, I was only joking," right? "My bad, I didn't mean to do that." Sometimes when we realize just how much pain and destruction our words bring, we say, "Wow, sorry, I didn't mean that." And this book of Proverbs is trying to get us to have more foresight, more wisdom, to realize that the words we use and gossip, it can be so destructive and hurtful. And it's trying to caution us, just like we would caution someone from shooting arrows up into the sky, it's trying to caution us with the words that we choose to use. Now, this wisdom of Proverbs, as it talks about the words that we choose to use and how they can start fires, how they can cause divisions, how that gossip can be so destructive, that is a concept that we see in Proverbs that's repeated in the New Testament when Jesus starts to teach his disciples. He draws on this same wisdom for us. For example, in Matthew chapter 5, the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 and 22 say the following. "You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, 'You shall not murder.' Don't murder, that's bad. 'You shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment.' But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable to the court, and anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Whoa, right? We thought the words of Proverbs were challenging and difficult. Jesus' words are even more. He takes it even further, right? And one of the things that's happening as we reflect on this wisdom that we see shared between Jesus' words and the book of Proverbs is that both of these examples are trying to get us to be mindful and to be more reflective on the words that we choose to use. Because gossip and slander can just be adding fuel to the fire. In this passage of Proverbs, as we reflect on it, I would just encourage you. I know taking this wisdom into our modern current context, there is a lot of tension, especially when it comes to politics. This can be an example in this book of Proverbs. We can see examples of that quite easily when we start to look through Facebook and social media of just how fast the words we choose to use can add fuel to the fire. So I would just encourage you today to just spend a moment just to reflect and think through the words that we're choosing to use. This passage and Jesus' words are not saying we cannot be political and we can't be politically minded. Jesus himself was extremely politically minded, right? He's engaging the Sadducees, engaging the Pharisees. He's making claims to be the true king, right? That's a political statement. If Jesus is the true king, then Caesar is not. And so as we engage, maybe in a political sphere, I would just encourage us to bring this wisdom that we see in the book of Proverbs into those conversations with us. We do not want to be the ones who look back and say, I didn't mean it. I didn't realize the danger, the fire I was spreading with my words. I was only joking. I'm sorry. This book of Proverbs is encouraging us to think forward and to be more reflective of the words we use and to have wisdom and carry that into our conversations. So I'll just encourage you. Matthew chapter 5 verse 9 says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." We can use our words to be peacemakers. We can use our words and avoid slander and gossip. And I would encourage us to take this wisdom with us as we enter into those conversations through this next week. All right, have a good one.